Father Bill Rakowitz from Loyola on the Potomac, and I'd like to share with you some thoughts on the Ascension. I'll never forget the October of 1957 when I was a boy of 8. The Russians, who were then atheistic communists, launched the world's first artificial satellite, Sputnik. In their papers the next day, they proclaimed, "We have gone up to heaven and have found it only dark and empty. We now have definite proof that there is no God." Many Christians have the misconception that Jesus rose up to heaven on Ascension, much like the rocket that launched Sputnik. Luke in Acts gives us a better description, which says he was raised and disappeared in a cloud. The same cloud that led the Israelites out of Egypt in Exodus. The one that descended and filled the tent that held the Ark of the Covenant. And the same cloud that filled the temple in Jerusalem when Solomon dedicated it. The cloud is the Bible symbol of God's presence. Thus, the feast of the Ascension is saying that Jesus, the Son of Man, returned to the Father, where he came from. He returns to heavenly glory and sits exalted at God's right hand. He is now the high priest and mediator of the world and God. He has gone to heaven also to prepare a place for us in his Father's house. Thus, this feast also has a meaning for us. Though we will never ascend or be assumed bodily into heaven like Mary, heaven is also our destiny and hope. As far as we know now, we haven't the slightest idea of what heaven is as a physical place. But we do know that heaven is the presence of God. Following the teachings and example of Jesus, we accept the will of God in our lives and so enter into God's mindset and presence. That is, the kingdom of heaven within you. But to do God's will requires that we have mastery of our lower and base desires and appetites through accepting God's helping grace and living in a spirit of charity and care of all whom we meet. Thus, we can set aside our natural egotism and self-centeredness and choose the greater good, the better, in service of all people, and even the planet in which we live. Following the will of God and imitating Christ is basically about transforming the negative into the positive in life, turning hate and fear into love and courage, from existing in limitation and restriction to thriving in freedom and expansion. It is about turning a closed mind set preoccupied on rules and regulation only for one's own benefit into an open mind, searching for a neighbor in need. God's will moves us from prejudice to acceptance, ignorance to understanding, darkness to light, resentment to forgiveness, cruelty and anger into kindness and compassion, selfishness into selflessness. Basically, from self-service to service of others. Thus, Christ truly remains with us unto the last days in his Spirit. The Holy Spirit reminds us of what Jesus said, to understand his words and to implement them today, and so inspires us to be faithful to Christ's mission in continuing to bring the goodness of God the Father into this world. Thank you.